right, folks, we are back. It's the Infowarrior with Jason Bermas. If you missed any of the first 2 hours, folks, you're going to have to go back. It is the debunking of the Nat Geo hit piece all the way through. Again, they only did 3 really lousy, insignificant experiments. No one ever said fire can't deform steel. That was never a claim of 9/11 truth. They took an I-beam and they put it in 2,000-degree temperatures. Yeah, of course it's going to bend. No one said otherwise. All right, let's continue to barrel through the calls. Seal in Canada. Seal, you're on the line.
Yeah, well, 3 quick points there, young Jason. First of all, God bless you young men, you Infowarriors and 911 truthers, and don't be distracted by their timing of this National Geographic outlay, because we know that the anniversary is coming up before the weekend, and so in final, I'd like to say that we've got to take a proactive approach at looking at what's ahead of the curve. Let's get ahead of the curve, Infowarriors. Let's look at what they're going to. Let's get ahead of this military-industrial CIA complex that Ike and JFK warned us so heavily about. God bless you, boys. God bless you.
Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. And, I am trying to get ahead of the curve. I'm trying to get a mass movement together down in New York City for the 10th anniversary, because really, even now, 9/11 is largely being ignored by the mainstream media. You're not seeing it all over the news, all over the regular networks like you did around the 5th and 6th anniversaries. It faded out during the 7th. They're still trying to keep it low-key during the 8th. They'll only resurrect it if there's another false flag attack in the United States, or on the 10th anniversary when they can't ignore it. You see, we're brainwashed to think in 5, 10s, 20s, 25s. These are the anniversaries that we remember. These are the ones that matter. So hopefully on the 10th anniversary, the Infowarriors are going to be loaded with ammunition, whether that be DVDs of Loose Change Final Cut or Fabled Enemies or something else that comes out in the near future. Maybe Invisible Empire becomes a big hit and shows the broader spectrum of what's going down, that we can take back 9/11. I truly believe that one day the truth, at least on some level, will be told, will be accepted, and hopefully, I hope to God, I pray to God, that some of the people involved in this attack do suffer the consequences, are brought to trial, are prosecuted, do have to serve their time in prison. That's what, these guys are mass murderers. This is real. A lot of people died that day. It hurts me to even, I can go back to the morning that it happened. I remember the feeling in my gut. I felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe this was going down. And initially, in the weeks and months after 9/11, I didn't even want to hear about it. I said, man, this is all over the news. It's just feeding into my head. I don't even want to hear about it. Let's just move on. We got to move forward. I don't want to hear about this stuff. But boy, when I started to learn what really happened, I needed to know, because it made that feeling in my gut come back again 1,000-fold, where I felt sick. All right, let's jump to the next caller. Let's go to Pat in Ohio. Pat, you're on the line.
Hi, Jason. I got 3 questions. The first one is about the Pentagon. I know that a plane did not hit the Pentagon, but what do you think happened to the passengers like Barbara Hoden and people like that? What actually?
Well, I think they're dead. It's a big mystery. What happens to these people on these planes? You go by the Northwoods document. In the 60s, they said, well, we'll fill these planes up with military personnel. We'll say they're college students. We'll land them safely at a location, and we'll have fake funerals for everybody. I don't necessarily think that's what happened here. I think that everybody on these things were collateral damage. They were accepted. Whether they flew those planes into the ocean or they gassed the passengers and actually used the planes in some type of other deal, who knows? I try not to speculate, but again, I have a hard time believing that Flight 77, piloted by Hani Hanyour, was able to make this incredible turn with all these G-forces, clip all these light poles, barrel into the Pentagon, have essentially large pieces of the wings disappear and the tail section disappear. So, I don't speculate on what happened to those people except for they're dead. I really, truly believe that everybody on those planes is dead. I don't think this is like a swordfish scenario where, John Travolta gets a new face at the end and he pretends he's dead. I think they're dead. What's the next question? Okay,
there's 2 more questions. Barry Jennings, Alex, I heard him in June, this past June, on June 12th. He mentioned Barry Jennings, but he also mentioned about somebody being in the witness protection program.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know that Barry Jennings was ever in the witness protection program. When I met him and I did that interview with him, he was quite concerned with his family, saying he had about 2 years till retirement, and he really, really needed to keep his job. Now, I think Barry Jennings is dead. From what I've been able to find out, he died of fast-acting leukemia. Is it super suspicious? You bet it is. But I can't go beyond that. I mean, he gave this, supposedly a retracting interview with the BBC, but the only thing he retracted on, he said everything that he said to me on camera, except for he said, I never said I was stepping over dead bodies. But if I play you the video, I didn't ask Barry Jennings, hey, are you stepping over dead bodies? Are there dead bodies in World Trade Center 7? He volunteered that information. I feel like that information was too hot to handle. Somebody said, hey, you can't be talking about this. So he went to the media, he went to the press. He didn't know that there would be repercussions after he gave this interview. And, was he murdered? I don't know that. Again, I know he died of fast-acting leukemia, and it is extremely suspicious. Third question, Pat.
Pat Tillman. Now, I know he died, and I was told that his unit, several people in his unit died a few days or a few weeks after he did. Where can I get this information?
He
died,
just type in,
a few days later.
I don't think it was necessarily a few days. I do remember one of the people, I think it was in Tillman's squad, was back in Los Angeles at a barbecue when somebody popped up and capped him and his friend. I would just type in, Tillman, suspicious murder. You're going to get a lot on the fratricide and the different investigations into his death. But then you can also type in Tillman's unit murdered, and you should be able to get some of the people that died during that investigation as well. I thank you for the call, Pat. I hope that was a big help. Let's jump to our next caller. Let's go to Jim in Florida. Jim, you're on the line.
Hey, Jason. There's a point about 9/11 that Tarpley always emphasizes in his book and other articles that I don't ever hear Alex mention. I have my own little theory about it. You probably will think it's silly, but it's about the Angel is Next threat to Air Force One.
Hold on.
When Bush was flying around.
Let me just stop you. Have you watched Fabled Enemies?
No, I haven't. I'm sorry.
You need to, because there's a huge section about it. It's not just about the Angel is Next comment. All right, let's go with Angel is Next. Okay. First of all, there were other targets that day. The Angel is Next just basically said, we have control, and the next target is supposed to be Air Force One. It was reported all over, and then it was recoiled, okay? And then I have Ari Fleischer in the film kind of saying, look, we can't talk about specifics. He keeps trying to dart the question, okay?
Right.
Now, later on, you find out that not only did they have the secret codes for Air Force One, the terrorists magically had the secret codes for all of Army intelligence, all of Marine intelligence, the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, all these different agencies. I think I named like a dozen of them. It's in an article out of WorldNet Daily. And to me, it seems like this was the Israeli arm, because the Israeli arm of this attack, they were the ones in Amdocs and Converse. And what were Amdocs and Converse doing? Amdocs and Converse were the ones that they had also, what did they compromise? They compromised the Secret Service, the Department of Defense, the SEC, the IRS. They were able to get into all these government agencies, and it seemed to parallel the same government agencies that had their codes hacked. So I really think that the Israeli arm of this attack was able to get that information and then put it into play on 9/11. In other words, call up whoever they called up, whether it be, military intelligence in the White House or the, Air Force One itself, whether it was Dick Cheney or Donald Rumsfeld, and say, hey, we have these codes and we're going to make these things go live, because they knew the drills were going down. So some of the drills had already gone live. World Trade Center got hit, Pentagon got hit, something went down with Flight 93. Who knows if something at Air Force One or worse could happen. So that's where I go with that in Fabled Enemies. I do mention Angel is Next. I do mention, the Israeli angle as well, the intelligence angle, and that's what I think the Angel is Next is. But let's hear your theory.
Well, Tarpley tries to present it as they were menacing the little ninny Bush and scaring the tar out of him to get him to go along with the plan in case he had any second thoughts about it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's the way that I see it in his book, Synthetic Terror, which I thought was a great book. But then it occurred to me that it might be something that was provided to him for plausible deniability in case of a Nuremberg trial.
Mm-hmm. See, that's a good question. See, first of all, I don't think that Bush knows anything about these attacks. I don't even know if he knows they're an inside job as they're happening. Now, somebody like Cheney and Rumsfeld, I have a hard time believing that they're not more in the know, or a Wolfowitz, if you will. So I don't necessarily think it was put there to give Bush plausible deniability, because again, they said fog of war. That was the new buzzword, fog of war, afterwards. And I don't think it was the fog of war. I think that the continuity of government, the people in the upper echelons that were actually carrying out this attack, did want to threaten the president, did want to bring this in. I suggest you go check out Fabled Enemies for a bigger overview. You can get it over at Infowars.com. It's available free at YouTube. Please check it out, Jim. Appreciate the call. All right, let's close out this segment without any callers. We'll come back to your calls after this, 888-201-2244. But the anniversary of 9/11, less than a week away. Very important we get this information to our friends and family. Let's make Fabled Enemies #1 on Google Video and YouTube and have them censor me yet again, because that's what happened last year. Fabled Enemies #1 on Google Video during 9/11. They just nixed it. Gone. It's the same thing when I launched it a little over a week earlier. September 1st, it was second. September 2nd, it was first on the list. They just freeze my account. No, you're not allowed to tell the truth.